Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Blacks Only. That's right, Blacks Only, the show that makes fun and ridicules, really, the society's obsession with race and identity as somehow being precursors for diversity. They're not. The only diversity that matters is intellectual diversity. That is why on this show you can have, yes, black individuals only, but we're diverse in terms of what we think, and no one grouping or no racial grouping or gender grouping is ever the same. This show makes fun of that, and by God, I'm happy for it to do exactly that. I'm your host, Big Daddy Liberty. Welcome, as I said, to another episode of Blacks Only. I have a very special episode in store for you guys today. As you guys will know, your favorite fat boy is a ardent Zionist and supporter of Israel. In fact, I have given you many an episode when I was in Israel. So you can find that over here. I'll put that somewhere over there in the links and description, so you can see the Israel trip I took and some of the episodes I shot when I was over in that side of the world. But let me not waffle on. I have two very special guests with me, and guys who are becoming very good friends of mine. Only because we share a very strong love of Israel and that part of the world. But these two chaps are literally in the battle of ideas in terms of advocating for Israel and really battling very toxic narratives that come from organizations like BDS and other sort of vile groupings like that. But, you know, so who exactly is in my studio today? Well, I'll begin closest to me. I've got Mr. Bafana Modise. Bafana, of course, is from the South African Friends of Israel. This is a very big organization that operates in South Africa. You'll see them in various projects and programs across the country. I first got introduced to them outside Parliament. Every Friday you'll find them usually waving their flags and our hoot in support as I went past it. Bafana, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Big Daddy.
Awesome. And let me just say a quick hello to Clive Mashishi, who is I think you head up the Zionist Movement, an organization called Zionist Movement.
Yes.
Yeah, Clive, welcome to the show. I'm very glad to have you on here.
Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. Guys, let's hop straight into it, because I know for a lot of my viewers, you know, some of them might be like, what? Big Daddy's a Zionist? A Zionist? What is a Zionist? Are we looking to take over the world and, you know, suppress people of color and Arabs? And is that who we are as Zionists, Bafana?
I mean, I wouldn't say that, and thank you for having me today.
Yeah.
Zionism, from most people, you know, it comes from a biblical text. I mean, some people don't want to align Zionism with religion because they feel like it's going to cause a whole lot of confusion.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, right? We all know of the prophets. In Africa, we used to sing songs which will say, all nations shall gather to Zion. There were many churches which were formed out of the idea that one day the children of Israel will return to their land.
That's right.
And what happened is that throughout the ages, we saw this coming to life, and we saw now Jews returning to their homeland. But obviously, it started as a movement. It started in the 18th century. It started by Theodor Herzl, who only had a vision. The vision to say, let us go back home. Let us go back to the land of our forefathers, the land where we can be freely Jewish. Why do we say freely Jewish? Because in most states, Jews could not be free.
That's right.
Jews were always the victims of every single day the economy is going up. Is the Jews. If they are broke, is their problem. If they are rich, is their problem. So either way, they felt like the world loves us for like a century, and then a couple of years back later, they will turn on us. So let's return to the land where we can be freely Jewish and be able to build a state. The only state, by the way, which today is Israel, standing today. So I would say that before, we can never assume that Zionist, by you being a Zionist, it automatically puts you or makes you an anti-Palestinian person.
That's right.
Because that's not the idea.
That's
the
right.
idea is that the Jewish community, they have history in that land. They've been in that land for a very long time. As Christians or as any other people over the world of faith, we have always been expecting a time like this. And so therefore, we should not be found wanting when it happens and start looking for political sound explanations on how can we make it look attractable to other people. Some people just don't hate, just hate Jews.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with those ones. I'm saying that I'm not saying let's put away the issue of the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
But some people hate the idea that Israel is the only Jew in the world,
Yeah.
and by so doing, everything that Israel does is on a spotlight, because it's mainly of the idea of Jewish hatred, apart from them being supporters of human rights.
And we're going to unpack a lot of these issues because I think they're very important. Because firstly, and I think you're spot on in describing who a Zionist is. A Zionist is someone who just believes and supports firstly the return of the Jewish people to their homeland, but also the establishment and enduring of a strong Israeli state that actually protects the rights of all citizens and not just Jews, right?
Yes.
Clive, I'm going to come to you because you run a Zionist movement, an organization here in South Africa, and you do a lot of work in our communities, especially in our black communities, in terms of promoting, the love for Israel, but also just spreading knowledge and demystifying some myths, if you will, about Israel. I'm looking to you to answer this question because if you didn't know South Africans, right, and your only experience of South Africans was listening to the politicians in this country, whether it's the ANC or the EFF, or worse yet, the friends of our politicians, the likes of Hamas and BDS, because that's who the ANC cozies up to, Hamas and BDS, actual terror organizations and sponsors of terror organizations. Anyway, if you didn't know anything about South Africans, and you listened only to the politicians, you would think South Africans hate Israel, they hate Israelis, and they hate Jewish people. Is that true from your experience?
Thanks, Big Daddy, for the invite. Firstly, I'd like to send our condolences to the family of the Gumbi family and the cast. We say, may God be with you. Number one, we can say that many South Africans are not anti-Zionist. Yeah. They love Israel.
That's right.
They are visiting Israel. Even in our communities here, we see people going there to see the Holy Land. So we started this Zionist movement to go to the grassroots so that we can educate our people more to know about Israel. Because our politicians, mostly they speak about Israel badly. Yeah. And when they speak, there is like all black people hate Israel. Yeah. All African people hate Israel. Like when you listen to ANC and when you listen to the BDS, the way they speak, they say, oh, we are going to join forces, we are coming there, we are boycotting Israel. And that is a lie. I always see our politicians confused, even the BDS confused, everyone confused, because they are not speaking the truth and the facts. They even used our own history, saying Israel is apartheid more than South Africa. And apartheid, it was a law in South Africa. You can't find it in Israel. You see there were Bantu laws, segregation laws and everything. And the first time when I visited Israel, I was surprised when I came to Ben Gurion Airport. First thing, I went to the toilets and I saw the sign. It was written in Hebrew, English and Arabic.
Exactly.
I said, oh, where's that segregation law?
Exactly.
So I found out that ANC and other parties, EFF, the BDS, every COSATU, they are speaking lies about Israel. That is not fact. So I said, when I came back, I met with the team and we said, now is the time for us to go down to the ground and educate our people more about what is happening. And
I want to come back to that, but Clive raises an interesting point because I had the same experience, right? I purposefully went to Israel to demystify or maybe even find out. Okay, so I went to Israel because I thought, okay, there's these myths that we're told about Israel, and there's these things that are said about Israel by BDS and the ANC and et cetera, One of them was exactly that Israel is an apartheid state. It segregates the people of color and races. It segregates the Arabs and the Jews and blah, blah, blah. And now you're thinking, you're sitting in this plane and you're heading towards Israel. You're thinking, hey, maybe I'm going to be like I'm going to be put into some prison here because I'm black or whatever the case may be. But when you arrive there, as Clive was saying, they go out of their way in Israel to be inclusive, both in terms of language, culture, the institutions in society. I spoke to a chap, and this again is one of the episodes I have. I will put the link on the screen somewhere here. I spoke to a chap who said, segregation. No, there's no segregation here. In fact, we go to the same universities, we have the same rights. If you're an Arab Israeli or a Jewish Israeli, you have the same rights as anybody else. Why do you think there is this desperate attempt, Bafan, why do you think there is this desperate attempt by the likes of BDS, Hamas, and their friends here in this country, ANC and EFF, to twist the facts and actually just to lie about Israel? Why do you think this is happening?
I think the problem that I think let me just rather speak from South African point of view, right? During the struggle in South Africa, during apartheid and all of that, most people within the ANC or within the PYA, because I myself am a product of the PYA. So I went to Israel for the first time in 2016, and we went there as a group of leaders going to be exposed to the truth.
Yes.
But obviously on a plane, you are like, this is propaganda, China, relax, we'll fund them, And when you get to Israel and you are looking for those black or white, Jewish, Arab type of segregation, and you don't see it. You even pass cops which are Arabs.
Exactly.
You're in a restaurant, there is Arabs, there is Israelis in the shops, everywhere there is diversity within the state.
Absolutely.
But then Big Daddy, here's the problem. The problem then goes to those who always mistaken the West Bank issue and the Gaza issue, and they kind of saying is Israel in a way is the only party in this whole war that should be responsible for what has happened as the aftermath of the wars that have taken place between the Arab world and the Israelis. The second question that I always ask people is that how is it that for 70 years you've been in this war, but it's only after 50 years that all of a sudden you all realized that you are dealing with apartheid. But all along all these years, there was no one who was saying, but this might be apartheid. Why? Because at that time, the Jews were the underdogs. At that time, the world today has forgotten that the Jews were seen as the underdogs, were seen as the nation about to be annihilated in 1967. The whole world was sympathizing with the Jewish community and say, they just came back out of Hitler and they are going into their state, and right where they are, they don't even have 20 years in that land, but already there is a war coming on their shores. And people were saying, we're praying to God and say, Lord, save the Jews. But today, the same Jews today who fought against the Arab world are today be viewed as the people who don't want peace, who don't want to share that land. Like Israel, you know this for real. There's been many peace talks between the Israelis and the Arab world. I wouldn't say the Palestinians, but I would say the Israelis and the Arab world. Because whether we like it or not, the people who hold the cards for peace in this conflict, it is the Arab world and the Israelis. The Palestinians at some point, I hate to say it, and it's unfortunate, but then there are people who are pursuing a political agenda with the lives of people on the ground. Because Gaza and the West Bank, this thing could have been solved in 93 by the Oslos. Could have been solved long time ago. But then rather people are rather choosing to stand and continue to say, here are the people living in poverty. Here are the people living under this severe or hostile environment, which ultimately was brought about as an aftermath. Some are saying they're terrorists, they are what. The Hamas is a terrorist organization. Let's be clear on that part, right? And for the mere fact that we should now automatically just stand and support that Israel is an apartheid state only because the view is sponsored by the Arab world, which is anti-Israel, and because then obviously our movement in the ANC have close ties with the Arab world from the struggle and from the East, and they just believe that actually since we are one pack, let's rather just go and support these people and give our history so short. South Africans went through a lot during apartheid, and I don't think that our history should just be downsized to I'm not saying let's put away the Palestinian plight. Let's address it. Let's start discussing solutions rather than discussing problems.
You're raising a very important point, and there's quite a few points actually that you've raised, and I want to unpack them briefly in the next 15 minutes that we have. There is something very disingenuous by the likes of BDS, even ANC, for example, when they say, no, Israel is an apartheid state, when we have parents, for instance, who actually lived through actual apartheid, which was institutionalized racism, and essentially a system which denied people liberties, it denied people freedoms, it denied people's actual human rights. When you then compare that institutionalized system, which has declared an affront to human rights, when you then compare that to Israel, we just don't see the evidence of that. You can't compare Israel, a society which is inclusive, it essentially provides and accords rights for all citizens, it provides protections to all citizens that live in that.
By you saying all, tell them there is 20% Arab minority living in Israel.
Absolutely. And by the way, that 20% Arab minority that lives in Israel is much happier living there under those democratic conditions than individuals who live under the authority of the Palestinian Authority or Hamas, because again, I've seen with my own eyes what it is to be someone who lives under that authority, or I've seen people, who live under the Palestinian Authority versus free Israelis who live in a free society. And this is where I come in terms of my own worldview. It's the idea of which of these two sides represents an actual free society that allows people to pursue their own interests, to pursue their own dreams, supports them, gives them a functional, stable democracy. It's a simple question. Which of those two sides is it? Is it the Palestinian side under the tutelage of Hamas and PLO, etc., or is it the Israelis that are actually the only democracy in that part of the world? I want to come back to you, Clive, because there's a question I opened up with, which I think is very important. It's that difference, isn't it, between also the political elites in this country, and ordinary South Africans who are actually very pro-Israel, pro-Zionist. In your work in the communities, what has been the take-up? Are people supportive when you say, "Hey, I'm Clive. I'm from the Zionist movement. This is who I stand. This is what I stand for." Are they supportive, or do you get a lot of resistance? What's your experience been like?
We have many people who are supporting the movement because people, they love Israel, they stand with Israel. So we don't see any obstacle when we go through the streets speaking about Israel. We are getting more supports, even we are having more people. Last week we were in Mafikeng, we are about to go to Lesotho, because people are starting to calling us now, saying, "Come, let's meet, let's discuss these issues," because what we hear on the media, it is lies only. So that is coming back to the question that you asked, Bafana, about the narrative that they are using now about apartheid and everything. That is their machinery. Because first, remember, when we check on Israel, before we build a wall there were suicide bombs coming into Israel. So Israel stopped it. And again, they dig tunnels. Israel stopped that and everything. Now they are coming to this machinery of saying Israel is apartheid. That is the way of attacking Israel. So those things, people realized it, and people are learning more. So our government and politicians, they are mostly supporting Hamas. Then we know and we understand why they are supporting Hamas.
In many weddings, they break at last and they say next year in Jerusalem. So even when you pray on Shabbat, there's always a reference to Jerusalem. So then what happens at the church today, here's the problem. The church today then is found between this thing of being guilt-tripped. So you have a thing of you are a church, but yet you say you are a church, you love God, you love people, but you support Israel that kills people, right? And maybe a pastor will be like, "No, I just love Israel, leave me alone out of this thing," right? And that's what has been happening today. We've been having a lot of churches who have been saying, "Leave me alone, I don't want to be part of it." Some have taken a stance and say, "We want to rise up against it."
Like the Anglican Church, for example.
But to them, it's a doctrine thing. Remember that some churches, they believe that they themselves are the children of Israel, and the church is the new Israel. And remember back before Israel was ever came back to life, there was an idea that the Vatican is the holy city, right? So with Israel coming to life, it contradicted many doctrines of many churches, which at some point made their own man-made ideas God's commands. And afterwards, they are starting to push political agendas to say we were going to stand with the underdogs, so it may be seen to be anti-Israel or to be pro-good rather than be pro-bad. But my view to you, my brother, is that the problem here in South Africa, per se, with the Israel question, is the idea that there is an attempt, a desperate attempt, to try to make Jews be seen as equally as the Boers who came to South Africa, took their land from the black people, and then from there they established their country. Meanwhile, these are the people returning, not coming to explore Israel. They were returning to Israel. So both of them, they can have equal claim to the land. The Palestinians themselves also, they were there for many years, and they have equal claim to that land. But as long as there's still people within these circles who hold views or that Jews, they want to control the world, Jews, they think they can bully us, Jews, they have all the monies in the world, that they control everyone.
Classic anti-Semitism, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's classic. And again, every single black person who speaks for Israel is bought by Jewish money, or every single person who speaks against the anti-Semitic things that you've been hearing from all over, kill the Jews, Hitler should have killed you all. And this comes from the mouths of people who are saying we are seeking good for the Palestinians. How is that even, how does it even make sense?
So that's the great irony. And maybe as we close the conversation, because we'll be having a lot of these conversations, these two fellas will be regulars on the show. I wanted to just make the distinction there, because we chatted about this earlier on. Not all Zionists and not all people who have a strong support and affinity to Israel do so from a religious perspective, for example. There are some people, and sometimes I straddle this line, you know, sort of the religious side of me kicks in, and then sometimes, you know, the classical liberal side of me kicks in. There are two distinct camps, but they find synergy somewhere. There are those who believe, yes, Israel and its existence is paramount. It's important because it's in the Bible, and it's promised to
the world or to the Jews.
Absolutely, it's a covenant between God and His people. Then those of us who, even though I also hold that religious view, but I also hold a more modern one, which is actually there's also hard evidence, if you want to call it, no, not if you want to, it's scientific evidence that points to, when I say scientific, it's archaeological evidence that points to actually, yes, the claim of the Jewish people to that piece of the Middle East is actually valid. There is hard archaeological evidence. In fact, we were having a conversation in the car coming to here when I was saying, when I was in Israel, a friend of mine who's a podcaster from Israel, Avi Abelo, shout out Avi, hey dog. Avi was saying, you know, if you are a property developer in Israel, sometimes you might wait years to get approval because they want to do an archaeological dig on the site that you want to work on, just to see if there's any maybe artifacts or historical stuff underneath that before you obviously build on top of it. And you have these digs all over, especially in Jerusalem. You have these digs all over, and they've began to point out the hard evidence of the history of the Jewish people to that land. So Zionism isn't always just about, oh, you know, because, God. You know, exactly, because some atheists will go, oh, but hang on, guys, I don't believe in the Bible, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, okay, fine. You don't have to believe in the Bible. But surely then, if you're going to make the science argument, here is hard scientific evidence that the Jews have a claim to that land. Guys, I'm going to give you final thoughts because we're in the sort of final minutes, just 30 seconds each. And what I want you to do is just tell people how they can find you and your organization, so your social medias, etc., etc. Clive, I'll begin with you. How do we find you?
Okay, you will find us at Zionist Movement on Twitter and on Facebook, again, Zionist Movement, then you'll get us there. And lastly, when Bafana spoke about the Bible and everything, mostly when I do my trainings, I firstly start by saying that when you speak about Israel, it's about prophecy being fulfilled. And about the churches that are fighting Israel now, the Anglican Church and the other Methodist Church that went to the BDS and made a friendship, they must read John 16, verse 2. Then it will explain about what they are doing now to Israel.
All right, man, that's homework for you guys to go through.
John 16 verse 2.
But Bafana, how do we find you on social media?
Okay, we are on Facebook, South African Friends of Israel, Bafana Modise on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Bafana Modise, South African Friends of Israel on all platforms, Zanzi Israel on Instagram, but South African Friends of Israel on Facebook. That's where you find us.
Gentlemen, thank you very much once again for joining me on the first show, I suppose, where we cover all things Middle Eastern and also Zionist in nature. You know, this side of me will come out a lot more, and I thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. I'll see you on the next one. And thank you for watching. As I said, I must restate this position. Zionism, for me, has a strong link with my classically liberal outlook. The idea that you can have a free people form a nation, form a country based on the rule of law, based on strong institutions that protect all citizens who live there. And that, yes, even if you want to call it the Jewish state as it is, that doesn't preclude other citizens who live in that part of the world from enjoying the exact same rights as everybody else. Because that's the whole point of Zionism and essentially supporting Israel. And this show in particular is exactly that. I'm in strong support of Israel, and I stand firmly against any of the usual lies, the tropes that are thrown, and really the anti-Semitism that comes out of various pockets in this country, such as the ANC, BDS, and Hamas. And this show, this little special feature that I think I'm starting here, will be to dispel a lot of those myths, and actually do so in a very grounded way with people who actually work on the ground on these issues. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this content. As always, leave me a comment, like the show, share the show, and tell me what you think, you know, give me your honest views. The comment sections are probably going to go live on this episode, and I'm looking forward to it. And remember, if you like the content that I produce here, consider supporting the show by becoming a friend of the IRR. That is a crowdfunding campaign by the IRR, who I'm in partnership with, and it's quite simple. Just SMS your name and your number to 32823. That SMS will cost you R1. Terms and conditions do apply. Or hey, maybe you are technologically savvy like the Israelis, well then find us online at irr.org.za/join, and you can sign up a monthly debit order of R90, which goes directly into supporting the work that I do here and on this show. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Remember, never trust a commie.